Right, welcome to the Blunders. Let's have an update on what's going on at Steinhoff. Yes, why not? It's the biggest blunder we've seen on this market in many a year. So it now appears that at the heart of what happened at Steinhoff was that Markus Jooste, the disgraced CEO, was running a massive balance sheet boondoggle centered on a small-town German-based subsidiary that had its own small-town German-based auditors that he was basically able to bully into a particular approach. So what he would do over a period of a decade is every time they bought an asset, he would take the good operational assets and put them on one side and declare those in the ordinary financials. Then he would take anything dodgy, anything questionable, the loan books, the property assets, or any other kind of financing complications, and shove them into some kind of crapco. Then he would sweep all of the crapcos into a German-based slush fund, which he would somehow convince the rest of the world was absolutely fine and kosher. And by convince the rest of the world, I mean everyone else associated with the company, starting with the chairman of the board and most significant shareholder, Christo Wiese, who has lost like $4 billion in this particular debacle, and then the board of the company, including some stalwarts of the South African business community, retired CEOs of this, that, and the other, the auditors, of course, Deloitte's global practice, taken for the loop, and then an array of Wall Street's finest and largest and most careful investment banks, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Citibank, all taken for hundreds of millions of dollars, all of whose most senior leadership met with Markus Jooste and convinced themselves that this guy was an opportunity that could not be passed up. Now, Jooste himself has gone underground. No one knows where he is. He's not answering his phone. He has been sending a few odd SMSs and WhatsApps to his former colleagues, apparently. But out he will. He'll be back. And this is a case, I think, where this man will be doing some serious jail time. China. Like all big countries with big economies, it's got global ambitions. It wants to be a big cheese in the global economy. It wants to have a big military. It's got a substantial security establishment. You know, people that are involved with, spying. Africa, the African continent, that's going to be a big sphere of influence for the Chinese because it has resources and the Chinese need resources. So nobody was particularly surprised in 2012 when the Chinese government offered to build and pay for a beautiful, shiny new headquarters for the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where that organization has its head office. And in addition to building a beautiful facility, the Chinese offered to wire the building with the latest technology, at no extra charge, just because they're good guys. And then they offered to wire all of the boardrooms with, the latest recording equipment. Nice of them. And then they offered to connect it via a high-speed internet connection for a daily download to a server farm in Shanghai, where agents of the Chinese security establishment would review the files in order to just make sure they were kept, safe, in case anybody needed them later. So when heads of state of African countries got together in Addis Ababa at AU headquarters in order to discuss important strategic issues ahead of global meetings, or perhaps to review policy issues with regard to, stuff that the Chinese might be interested in, then the Chinese agents were able to listen in and make sure those files were kept, for safekeeping, so that everything would be, all good and well for future reference, Right, airlines have finally had it with people and their pets bringing on board and putting them in the cabin. You understand what happened here? Over the years, airlines started accepting cases where somebody would bring along an emotional support animal because someone had a psychological or mental disorder that could be assisted by an animal with which they were familiar. The theory being that if you had, Rover the Labrador along with you, that it would help you keep your shit together if you were prone to nervous or other panic attacks while flying. Unfortunately, this started getting abused because people would bring along a letter from their, tame friend, the psychologist, saying that some pet, which they just didn't feel like paying for to get put in the hold with animal transport, needed to be with said individual passenger at a zero cost in the main cabin. And this week, United Airlines basically blocked a woman who brought along her emotional support peacock.
Woo!
A peacock, exactly. That's the noise they make. Crazy, skittish animals. Definitely not anyone's emotional support. I mean, come on, what next? When I go flying next, I'm going to take along my emotional support rhinoceros. Volkswagen is in trouble again. Now, remember in 2015, they paid fines of tens of billions of euros because it transpired that they had designed their diesel cars to fool the tests when they were being checked to see how much nitrous oxide they were pushing out the exhaust. So not designed to meet the standards, designed to work out when they were being tested so they could temporarily meet the standards. And now it transpires that in addition to that, Volkswagen and some other companies funded a research organization which carried out tests to ascertain quite what the impact was on humans and monkeys, it turns out, of said nitrous oxides. So they conducted a test where they put 10 monkeys inside an airtight container, connected it to the exhaust of a Volkswagen Beetle, and then made the monkeys watch Cartoon Network. Then they tried it on healthy humans. So, I don't know, they've disassociated themselves now with this research program, but what was the point of the research? Perhaps it was to try to show that even if you drove one of their cars, and even if you were to breathe the nitrous oxides, it would only just marginally fry your brain. I mean, you'd still be able to sit in an airtight room and enjoy Cartoon Network.